JKB back with another episode. Today on the show I'm reviewing Forza 7. Thank you so much to Xbox Canada for sending over the review copy. Forza 7, simply put, is the best racing game I've ever played. The structure of the typical racer is quite simple. You compete in a race, you win some cash, you spend it on a new car, then you do it all over again in a faster car. Sometimes the tracks are easier and then they get harder. That can be said about Forza 7, but it's so much more than that. At the start of the game, you are given not only the option to choose which gender you want to play as, which, I choose female for some odd reason I should probably look into, but also you can choose the outfit that your on-screen driver will wear during your adventure across this, like what I like to call history of automobiles, which is not official, I just call it a history of automobiles. Pick the usual to the wacky outfit, as Forza 7 does its best to give you just a little more customization to make you feel like you're really behind the wheel of the cars you are driving in-game. The game has all the usual suspects in terms of gameplay features. If you've seen it elsewhere, it's probably here. But the one thing you haven't seen in any other racing game is the new way to deal with the sheer amount of cars in the game. How do you handle over 700 cars? How do you navigate such massive menus? Well, the answer is by putting the cars into different tiers. Each car will have a number beside it, which adds into your car level. Once you've either purchased or won enough of the cars in the game, your numbers will start to add up and actually unlock different tiers for you to get into. There's also a loot crate system that's been introduced. Loot crates can be opened, revealing new cars and mods. These mods can be used during races to increase your XP or your earnings. One example is to perform 2 different perfect passes during a race. You can use up to 3 mods, and this can lead to having a race at night during a thunderstorm with all of your driver assist turned off. These 3 different mods will equal into a much bigger payout for your XP and your earnings. If you complete all of the objectives on the mods, you win the prize listed on the mod. Personally, this does bring another level to the game in terms of challenging yourself. I should also point out that you don't need to spend, actual money on these, because you spend in-game currency on the loot crates themselves. These can be purchased during the main menu or in between races, so make sure you're always using your mods because you're going to amplify all of your XP and your earnings as you race through the single player levels. Graphically, Forza 7 is absolutely beautiful. The game runs at a solid 60 frames per second on my Xbox One S, and I'm beyond excited to say I'll be covering the 4K version of the game because Xbox Canada is sending me the Xbox One X to review. So it's going to be very interesting to compare the 1080p to the 4K. The atmosphere on the tracks has been updated since the last version of the game, and the standout feature is the inclusion of real-time thunderstorms that will turn a dry track into a wet track in real time. Now, I do the opposite to women. This is something I've always wanted in a racing game, and it's here, and it's stunning to see for the first time. You think you understand the track. You know the corners, you know when to push the limits, and you know when a turn is coming up. However, the moment the first drop of rain hits your windshield, you have to adapt to the new conditions and the puddles that are formed on the track. Do this all in real time. That's the challenge here. That's why I play these games, and that's why you've got to experience this for yourself. One added detail that I got a huge kick of was the vibrating windshield wipers on the cockpit view. This is a crazy detail that they've just added into the game, so true hardcore racers are going to notice these things. It should be pointed out that not every single track in the game does support the real-time weather effects, which is kind of understandable but kind of disappointing. Customization for each car is at the highest level of detail I've ever seen in a game. So if you like fooling around with the different parts of your car to get your ultimate control, you'll be very pleased here. Personally, I'm a big fan of designing the paint on my car and the look of the body using custom body parts. And of course, both of these features are here in Forza 7. With the online market in place, you can also download designs and tuning for your car at any point in time. So if you don't quite understand how tuning works, somebody might have uploaded a tuning for, say, heavier back end in a car, so you can download the tuning setting and experience it for yourself. Multiplayer is as good as it's ever been. However, be ready to deal with a lot of frustration at times when players will constantly smash into the back of your car at the start of a race. It's, one simple wipeout and it's game over. This can lead to some very frustrating moments online. However, there's nothing like playing a proper race online with people that love this game as much as you do. Multiplayer is also as vast as single player. The content is there. Basically, if you can race it in single player, you can do it online. Let's get to the pros and the cons of the game, and then I'll give you my score. The first con has to be the music during the menu screens isn't that great. If you like Nickelback, you're in luck. That was very frustrating for me. There's no electronic music here, which is something that a lot of racing games usually use. Not saying that that's the perfect choice. I'm just saying the choice they made is not the best. The next con has to be this game is less romantic about the cars, about everything, and more technical this time around from the presentation standpoint. The menu system and the tone and everything it takes, it's just not as romantic as the last games. This game isn't trying to get you to fall in love with the cars. It's basically just trying to put you behind the wheel of one. Now let's get to the pros of this game. The car tier system, which forces you to use cars you may have never wanted to use, actually is pretty cool. And I'm going off script here to just add in that, there's some cars that I absolutely just wanted to fucking avoid. I just looked at them and I don't want to do that. But the game kind of forced me into it based on the fact that I hadn't really unlocked the next tier of cars. So I had to use this car that I just didn't want to use. But then I learned that, wow, this actually controls a lot better than I thought it would, and I had a real blast with it. So the car system for the tiers does work. Now, here's one amazing thing about the game. It goes from an arcade racer to a top-of-the-line sim. It's amazing that it can do this, but in the settings menu, you can make it an arcade racer, and then you can also make it a sim. So if you're into racing games and you have kids, you can play it with them. That's a huge plus. Graphically, I think it's the best game that's ever been on a console. I mean, it looks ridiculous. Best to date, simple. To finish out the pros here, have to be, bringing in world famous race car drivers to tell personal stories about the tracks or the cars as you select them on the menu screens was awesome. It got me right into the mood of wanting to play a racing game. You're listening to somebody who does it professionally saying this turn here is, I'm warning you, this turn's a bad turn. Make sure you look out for it. You get into the race, you're thinking about those things. It's awesome hearing that there's such passion out there for racing. So for them to do it this way in a video game really does work. Over 700 cars, give or take. Some, might be doubles at the end of the list there, but I mean, that's a lot of cars. And lastly, for the pros, real-time weather is just amazing. It's not on every single track, but it is spectacular to see for the first time ever. But in closing, let's give a score. I'm going to just say right now, yeah, it's not as romantic as the past games, but Forza 7 is my game of the year thus far. I don't know what's going to come along and take that down, but I'm giving it a perfect score of 10 out of 10. Best racing game I've ever played, period. You can nitpick about you know, the emotional aspect of the game, how they've kind of taken the, I wouldn't say the soul out of the game. It's more technical than romantic, but other than that, there's no major cons here. I can't think of anything. So 10 out of 10, my game of the year thus far. I'll see you in the next episode of JKB.